How many episodes of the Ford Fiesta have there been, Paul?
I don't know, 37?
Well, Harrison Ford has a very active 70s, but he brought the decade to a close with a crazy busy 1979. So this is our 14th episode of the Ford Fiesta and the fourth movie of Ford's from 1979.
Wow, go forth.
Let's do it now.
Apocalypse Now.
That was really dumb. It's the Ford Fiesta! Welcome to the show, everyone. I'm the Force Whitkins.
And I'm Apocalypse Now, Stan.
You know, it's pretty amazing to think that in just over a dozen movies into his career, Harrison Ford has already appeared in 4 legitimate, all-time legendary films that belong in anybody's top 10 list. American Graffiti, The Conversation, Star Wars, and today's classic Vietnam War saga by Francis Ford Coppola, Apocalypse Now. But a dozen plus movies only puts us about a quarter of the way through our run of watching every Harrison Ford movie there is.
So, welcome to Season 2, which is what we're calling it because in podcasting, if you miss a week, you're legally obligated by the Council of Elders to start a new season.
Actually, we wanted to emulate for our audiences what it was like to wait for Apocalypse Now to come out in 1976, 77, 78, 79. But we don't have an Eleanor Coppola to record our descent into madness. We only have you, the audience, which we'd like to grow, so please help us out by liking and sharing our posts about the show, subscribing wherever possible, and of course, following us on social media at The Movie Guys. And of course, at themovieguys.net, our home base, where you can find all of our old shows that have led up to this appearance by Harrison Ford as Colonel Lucas. Colonel Lucas. Sound familiar?
Obviously, it's a reference to John Ratzenberger's mechanic in Hanover Street.
And if you didn't get that joke, the Hanover Street episode is available on iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and all podcast platforms. Now, later in the show, we'll be joined by our friend and cohort in the Movie Trivia Schmoedown, the crazy online trivia league where tens of thousands of people watch us play movie trivia, Mr. John Kaiser.
Oh, be prepared. A different show than usual. John, Adam, and I got together in person, and we watched Apocalypse Now. Now, Adam and John decided they'd do some drinking during the film, and have we mentioned yet that it's long?
Yeah.
So they're rather lit by the time we did the usual film discussion, and it's something to behold.
Kirin Lager Beer.
So that's coming up. But first, what's new in the world of Harrison Ford? You know, I sort of have a Harrison Ford offshoot story. I went to the Geffen Playhouse. I've been kind of on a tear since theater returned. I saw The Band's Visit. I saw the Lehman Trilogy. I saw Hadestown. I saw Power of Sail with Bryan Cranston at the Geff House. That was amazing.
I don't even know what you're talking about with all these.
Yeah, that's an original play, but Cranston on stage, I mean, it was fantastic. Ooh. And Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf starred Zachary Quinto and Callista Flockhart.
Oh,
so there you have the Ford tie-in, and she was fantastic. You know, I never was a real Ally McBeal fan, or just didn't watch it to know whether to be a fan or not.
Right.
But she was great in this, and she and Quinto had a nice chemistry, you know, that Burton Taylor sort of, Susan, my girlfriend Susan and I just yelled at each other the rest of the night. It was fun. Damn it, Susan,
so
close the window! You know?
And then she has to like go on in some random way. Windows. They say they're the view to the soul, you know, whatever.
yeah. But no one wants to listen to you. They were both great, so that was fun and recommended if it's still running by the time this airs.
Oh, what a great play! What a great play!
Oh, Indiana Jones 5 is done shooting. Oh. Not post, of course. It's not going to come out until next summer.
Right.
But a fun story about Harrison Ford is he hosted the wrap party from his own pocket, which is class, right? That's
sorry I delayed your production by breaking my leg.
Yeah. And Ridley Scott, here's more news, is developing Blade Runner 2099 for television.
This is awesome. The Ridley Scott era of sequelizing his old stuff, I just love. I love the Alien movies he did. He's having a lot of fun in those movies, and this is awesome. This is great.
It is interesting. Like in Prometheus, they mention the relationship perhaps between Tyrell in Blade Runner, and who's the guy in Alien? Who's
Weiland or Yutani? Weiland, yeah.
Like Tyrell might have been his mentor or vice versa or something like that. And there's a reference to a location that Rutger Hauer's Roy Batty mentions in that Tears in the Rain speech. There's a mention of that place in Prometheus. So, like, even those worlds are kind of tying together, so it's all fun. And,
I love it.
But don't expect Harrison Ford. 2099 obviously puts it 50 years ahead of the last movie, so
yeah.
I don't think we'll see Deckard. But
he might come across an older Ryan Gosling.
Yeah, exactly.
And it would make sense that Ryan Gosling would still look like this, even though he's 50 years older, because he's Ryan Gosling.
And Ford is being honored on June 10th by the Aero Club of Southern California. All we ever talk about are his plane crashes. They're honoring him, which is cool. But because here's some of the other things he's done. In 2010, he commanded an Operation Smile medical volunteer and supply airlift for Haiti earthquake victims. He's a volunteer search and rescue helicopter pilot in Teton County, Wyoming. We've talked about that.
Yeah.
And he's traveled to D.C. multiple times to advocate for pilots' rights. And so he'll get the Howard Hughes Memorial Award at a ceremony in California at the California Science Center.
Huh.
And his name will be added to this award. It's kind of like the Stanley Cup, where just keep adding names right there. I mean, can you imagine? He's loves flying, and his name's going to be next to Chuck Yeager, Neil Armstrong, Jim Lovell, Sully Sullenberger.
Wow.
And of course, for $325, you can go, Adam. You can go to this dinner.
I made Jim Lovell laugh once. He came and spoke at our college around the time of Apollo 13, and some little kid got up and gave him a little card that she'd drawn of the Apollo 13 or whatever, and gave it to it. Got the big awe or whatever. And I said something like, "Well, I guess she stole my thunder," or something like that. Like, I brought a drawing too, but it's not as good as that one. I can't remember. I said something like that. And made Jim Lovell laugh.
He's got a good sense of humor, because she could have drawn like the ship not on the moon, and he's like, "Yeah, thanks for the reminder, kid."
Great.
Yeah.
I was going to say Jim Lovell and Sully Sullenberger. I mean, some of the names you mentioned there.
Why, yes, when, no.
Yeah, it's good company.
What we really love about him being a pilot is stuff like this, because he's a superhero in real life. It's so fun.
And if you want to see Harrison Ford on television, now's your chance.
A first.
After missing out on The Staircase, that show is out right now with Colin Firth. Colin Firth took over the role in that film because Indiana Jones 5 going on and on. So Ford missed out on that, but he will make his first appearance in a television show, playing opposite Jason Segel in Apple TV Plus's Shrinking. And that Segel plays a grieving therapist who starts to tell his clients exactly what he thinks, and apparently it works. Makes them better, makes him better. And then Ford plays like a blue-collar shrink who's struggling with Parkinson's, who has his own sort of, I guess, difficulties with his family and stuff. And I don't know if he takes umbrage with Siegel's way of doing things because he's old and blue-collar, or maybe he is a champion of it, or maybe he goes to him for therapy because he has trouble with all these things in his life. But either way, it's a comedy because it's from the Ted Lasso gang.
Okay.
Brett Goldstein and Bill Lawrence will be producing. And so it should be fun. I'm looking forward to, I cringe a little because, he's one of the last movie stars out there with Tom Cruise who isn't doing TV, but I'll take it, I'll take what I can get.
He hasn't done TV since the Christmas special.
Yeah. That's right. It's true.
But, let's not kid ourselves here, Paul. You and I are movie guys. We obviously prefer to go to a dedicated space, let the lights come down, let the whole thing wash over us and everything. But the TV that's being made today are just movies that are cut up into pieces. I mean, they're just long movies. They're very, these are good movies being made on all the streaming platforms.
Oh, you're absolutely right. I mean, that's one of the things. It's the streaming platforms do have an edge up, because one of the things I noticed when Daredevil came out on Netflix was Daredevil felt like a movie on television.
Right.
But if you watched The Flash or something on WB, it looked like a TV show.
It does.
So you can elevate it, you can escalate it. It seems like streaming just will never make something that could look remotely like it was on network television. So by being on Apple TV Plus, I mean, good for them. They also just won the Oscar for Best Picture, so they know.
And obviously, he's underutilized for comedy. And what we've said is the few times it's worked, and we'll be covering those coming up, like Morning Glory, and I guess to a degree Anchorman 2, is when they play that gruff thing for comedy.
I had lunch
Yeah.
with Dick Cheney.
Yeah, and I think the Ted Lasso team knows how to balance that sort of comedy with real human issues, and so it should be good for him to settle into. And of course, you can't Google Harrison Ford news without there being dopey stuff. So
what did it get you?
Mads Mikkelsen says Ford was a monster of a man on the set of Indy 5, referring to his workout regimen at 79. So if you are like lamenting the shape you're in and you're not 79, look to Harrison Ford as inspiration, apparently. Mads.
Okay.
And it just reminded me, Mads is in that movie because we got Antonio Banderas, we got Mads Mikkelsen, we got Phoebe Waller-Bridge, right? But I keep forgetting how great the cast is because we talked about it so long ago and they took so long to shoot it that I'm starting to get hyped up again for this movie.
I mean, this is something that they really kicked into as a part of an Indiana Jones movie in the last movie. Because, I mean, yeah, you brought Connery in for Last Crusade, and who's the guy that played Belloc? I can't even think of his name.
Paul Freeman.
Yeah, Paul Freeman, obviously respected in France, and he's in a bunch of other stuff that's respectable. But I can't name any of them. The one thing I know I keep buttering you up about the Crystal Skull is that's a crazy ass cast in that movie. Like I would think you would see any movie with that cast, and the fact that cast is in an Indiana Jones movie really is another notch in the belt, I think, of Crystal Skull. And they're doing it again for this. It's like, all right, stunt cast. Let's get, who are we going to get in here to play the villain, this femme fatale? Really genre eyes up Indiana Jones in the last two movies in that way.
Yeah, that's true. If you told me, Kate Blanchett and Ray Winstone were in a movie, that might be enough for me to go.
Right.
And then you throw in Harrison Ford, Shia LaBeouf, Karen Allen, and John Hurt, I'd be like, oh, okay.
Okay, I'm going to see what this is about.
I didn't care to like it, but again, it feels almost like this show is leading up to that episode, even more so than Call of the Wild. When we get to Crystal Skull, will I enjoy it better than I did?
Yeah.
14 years
We should
ago.
have a big viewing party because I remember Kevin Smets early on said, I want to watch that because he likes that movie. And I think if we fill your living room with inner geekdom competitors, Paul, you're going to walk out going, all right, that movie's...
That's true. Also, and this is fun, Harrison Ford was spotted in Fort Worth, Texas. No real reason claimed, although he often goes there to refresh his piloting skills.
Okay.
And he was also spotted in Wichita. And the interesting thing about that, this was around May the 4th, so people were excited to see him for, the May the 4th be with you day.
Yeah.
But he's just kind of doing stuff.
All right.
He's done shooting, and he showed up in, I guess he shows up in Wichita every year. He looks for, like, this specific pillow, and this department store's excited to see him, and he's been taking pictures with the waitstaff everywhere he went. He's not like, leave me alone. Although there is a story where someone said, you look like, and he goes, yeah, I look like someone who looks like someone. But... I don't know. I always like when he's doing fun, weird stuff, and it looks like he has just been traveling and enjoying himself. So,
where do I come from? Where am I going?
I almost feel like I'm with TMZ when I follow this stuff. But hey, we only do it every episode,
and we do it for Harrison Ford. It allows us to obsess. It's great.
And one more quick recurring show segment before we get to the recap.
This
Date in Ford history. Now. 5/19/1960, Ford graduated from Maine East High School in Park Ridge, Illinois. Do you think they make a day of it?
Do they?
I don't know. I would. I'd put the movies
on
the lawn. The football field. We'll set up a big screen and show Patriot games or something. I would do that.
I would make a pilgrimage.
And then, of course, you can't talk about this date in Ford history without acknowledging that it's May and beginning of the summer season. So this is the time of year when plenty of big-time Harrison Ford movies were released.
Big anniversaries.
Yeah, so May 17th, 1980, The Empire Strikes Back. May 24th, 89, Last Crusade. May 24th, 08, Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. And, of course, May 25th, 1977 and 83 was Star Wars and Return of the Jedi. But even before then, he was inching his way into May with the releases of Journey to Shiloh on May 17th, 68, and Hanover Street on May 18th.
Yeah, we've always talked about that. When are we going to get to big summer Harrison Ford? That's when he sealed his reputation with us. It was like every summer, you're going to get your Harrison Ford movie. So it's cool to see all those anniversaries.
All right, on to the movie, Apocalypse Now. What's it about, you ask? Well, first of all, we're getting to it. And secondly, who let you in? We'll tell you what it's about because luckily we have in our hands the patented Movie Guys Recap.
Apocalypse Now is the 1979 war movie directed by Francis Ford Coppola from a script by John Milius. And it does for war what Coppola did for organized crime in The Godfather and conversations in The Conversation.
Unlike more modern takes on war, Apocalypse Now doesn't try and put you in the visceral, realistic tension of combat any more than Coppola tries to rat-a-tat-tat the mob in The Godfather. Apocalypse Now is a tone poem, a moody meditation supposedly on the horrors of war, but really it showcases the insanity that fills the vacuum wars create in social order.
Loosely adapted from Heart of Darkness by William Conrad.
The year is 1987, and NASA launches the last of America's deep space probes.
I think you mean Conrad Bain.
Tonight on Different Strokes, we are presenting the first half of a two-part show on a very important subject, the dangers of hitchhiking.
An adaptation previously abandoned by Orson Welles and thought to be unfilmable, Coppola spins his blank check the way most 70s filmmakers did, by bankrupting himself in an overindulgent filmmaking exercise that broke a previous auteur.
Coppola begins his symphony of war with the Doors proclaiming, "This is the end," for you symbolism fans, as a helicopter rotor turns into a ceiling fan for all you match cut fans. And Martin Sheen, who somehow looks like both of his sons, but whose sons don't look like each other, plays Captain Willard, who wakes up in Saigon.
Still only in Saigon?
Still. He's drunk, just like all those war heroes of the past weren't. John Wayne never had to be dragged into a cold shower by MPs after he smashed his hand on a mirror after downing a bottle of Old Crow. Willard is taken to a meeting with Army intelligence, who tell him that Marlon Brando has retreated into the jungle and gone nuts, experimenting on animals and turning them into strange-looking humans. Wait a second. Sorry. That's the wrong Marlon Brando Goes Nuts movie.
In this one, Brando plays Colonel Walter E. Kurtz of the U.S. Special Forces, who's disappeared in Cambodia, waging guerrilla warfare outside military control, setting up his own kingdom where he is worshipped like a god and gone insane, as evidenced by a recording acquired by Army intelligence where he blathers on about war.
I think me and you will be a page of what we're going to do.
That might have been Crackhead Bob from the Howard Stern Show. Here's the right clip.
Pig after pig, cow after cow, village after village.
Yeah, but that's not really what this movie is about. Harrison Ford plays Colonel Lucas.
I get it!
One of the three military personnel who meet with Willard. He leads the meeting, giving the entire backstory on Willard and Kurtz, and gives him his assignment. If this were a James Bond movie, he'd be M.
Your mission is to proceed up the Nung River in a Navy patrol boat. Pick up Colonel Kurtz's path at New Mung Ba, follow it, learn what you can along the way.
Sometimes when Ford has a smaller amount of screen time, you have to wait for him to show up, but not here. He's on early and given the huge task of kicking this whole plot in motion.
Clearly, Ford's early appearance here is easily one of the reasons Apocalypse Now won 2 Oscars, the Palme d'Or at Cannes, and Film of the Year status at the London Film Critics Circle.
But if you want to know how long it took to make Apocalypse Now, note that Harrison Ford is conversation age. After Colonel Lucas gives us some more backstory, he shifts uncomfortably to the next topic. You see, Willard wasn't brought here to be told the story of Kurtz. He's being told to find Kurtz and kill him, a request Harrison Ford has trouble even saying.
When you find the colonel, infiltrate his team by whatever means available, and terminate the colonel's command.
Although he actually has trouble saying a lot of things.
And which way to the bathroom?
Well, it's stopped up and some of the men have been using a bucket out back.
Willard is inserted into a squad of Navy soldiers on a patrol boat to head down the river and find Kurtz. Amongst the ensemble that will slowly unravel are the machinist, the one they call Chef.
The machinist, the one they called Chef, was from New Orleans.
Lance in the forward 50s was a famous surfer from the beach.
Forward 50s was a famous surfer from the beaches south of L.A.
Clean.
Mr.
Clean was from some South Bronx...
Some South Bronx shithole, and I think the light and the space of Vietnam really put the zap on his head.
And Phillips
then
the
there
chief...
was Phillips the chief. It might have been my mission, but it sure as shit was the chief's boat.
Their first assignment, rendezvous with the 9th Cavalry Regiment, the Air Cav, a helicopter assault command led by the flamboyant and eccentric, laser-targeted satirical bullet on the insanity of war, William Kilgore. For all you Aptronym fans?
The tide doesn't come in for 6 hours! You want to wait here for 6 hours?
But they might as well have named the character John Milius, as the hilariously pro-war Kilgore bombastically takes over the movie, sweeping us and Willard along for the ride as he barks out orders, drops death cards on the killed, and demands the pro-surfer take to the waves despite being shelled by the Viet Cong.
You want to surf, soldier? Yes, sir. That's good, son, because you either surf or fight. That's clear.
And that's all just a prelude to Kilgore's dawn raid on a nearby village, where air cavalry rides in like their namesake, a force of 12 helicopters, and napalms a village while playing Wagner's Ride of the Valkyries out of the mounted speakers directed at their prey. For all you fans of diegetic music.
After the gorgeously shot smoke has cleared, Kilgore delivers the most famous line of the movie.
I love the smell of napalm in the morning.
And the funniest.
Someday this war's gonna end.
And frankly, that's where the movie ends. Nevertheless, it continues. Winding symbolically, I guess, up the river, encountering more surreal vignettes of the randomness and absurdity of war, and Willard's mission as he plunges deeper into the heart of darkness, or whatever.
The script began as a series of stories that John Milius, George Lucas, and Coppola were told by returning veterans. And you'd believe it because 10 dissolves up the river, Chef leaves the boat to have a little side quest for some mangoes, only to meet the level boss that is a tiger.
A tiger in Africa? A tiger in Africa?
About 5 dissolves up the river from there, the wearying crew witness another surreal chapter as Playboy bunnies are lowered from a helicopter over the water. It's a USO show, which quickly turns into the de-evolution of humanity.
Another couple dissolves from there, they assassinate an entire boat thinking they had guns, when what they really had was a puppy, if you're into metaphors.
Finally, they reach the last American outpost before the true wilds of the unknown, Dolong Bridge. The boat arrives during a North Vietnamese attack on the bridge. It's a triumph of photography, production design, choreography, and massive scale, a feast for the eyes, particularly Lance's dilated eyes, because he decided to drop acid when they arrived.
That's when the acid kicked in.
Realizing the war has devolved into chaos during their mission, the chief tells Willard to turn back, but Willard pushes them on as tension increases amongst the crew. Chief is proven right that they should have turned back when he gets hit with a spear that goes through his entire body. And Clean would probably back him up if he wasn't killed in a Viet Cong ambush moments before.
A couple of dissolves from there, the river patrol boat finally arrives at Kurt's compound. And if you thought the movie couldn't slow down much more, wait till you meet Kurtz, played by Marlon Brando at his heaviest weight to date. He definitely had more weight to gain. If you heard the description of him earlier in the movie, you'd think he got the wrong dossier.
At first, I thought they handed me the wrong dossier.
It's okay to nod off at this point because I'm pretty sure Brando is, during the pauses in his nonsense speech. Whatever happened to saying rambling with some energy?
There's mine's over there too! And watch out, those goddamn monkeys bite you, I'll tell you.
Like the master of it, Dennis Hopper, who shows up to inject a little energy into the movie.
Ah, that's a pretty one. Move it right in toward me. I'm an American!
I wish Dennis Hopper entered every movie 2 hours in, talking jive like this. Bruce Wayne, gets his back broken, thrown into a pit, and Dark Knight Rises, and then out of the darkness.
Do you know that if is the middle word in life?
Yeah, in The Last Jedi, Finn and Rose, they get thrown into the jail on Canto Bight, and then suddenly you hear...
No maybes, no supposes, no fractions. You can't travel in space. You can't go out into space, without, with fractions.
Yeah, you got Fay Ray tied to the sacrificial post. You see the trees start to jostle back and forth and out of the trees.
And watch out, those goddamn monkeys bite you, I'll tell you.
Kurtz forces Willard to listen to hours of Jim Jones-style ramblings without even offering him a sip of cyanide-laced Flavor Aid for the sweet, sweet release of death. Paul, should I have written Kool-Aid there? Because Flavor Aid is accurate. That's it. To let you know how cheap Jim Jones was.
Imagine going out, after you sip it, your last visit. This was Flavor Aid, by the way. Wait, what?
Hey, Jim, I went to the grocery store. They had Kool-Aid and Flavor Aid. Flavor Aid's about 5 cents cheaper a packet. That's the one.
Then This Is the End makes another appearance, stripped of its irony, now that it's in a more appropriate place than the beginning of the movie. Willard kills Kurtz, which is montaged with the village's killing of an ox. Given Marlon Brando's size, must have been impossible for the editor to differentiate, and must have been incredibly insulting to Brando.
And then as Kurtz lay dying, he utters the movie's famousest, also famous? It's a quotable movie, that's what we're trying to say. And you know what? And maybe it's the movie's ultimate statement on war? Maybe? I don't know, I'm doing a lot of work here for this movie.
Which, coincidentally, were critics' reviews of the movie. Apocalypse Now, everybody. That's all right. And now we do the part of the show where we conversate. So we're going to talk about Apocalypse Now, and here's how we got to where we are.
Paul, how did this story start?
This is the inaugural show back in the garage.
It is.
Since the pandemic started.
In the Admiral's Lounge.
The Admiral's Lounge, the Admiral's Club. We have not been here in some time. We've been on Zoom, but this is exciting.
Yeah.
And in his final appearance, we have a guest, as we said earlier in the show. John Kaiser is with us.
I have arrived. I'm with the movie guys. My only goal in life was to be with the movie guys. I am here with the two funniest dudes on the planet, and I'm ready to roll.
here's how we got here. At 1 o'clock, these guys came over to watch the
1 in the p.m.
Yes, the final cut version of Apocalypse Now.
Right.
It is now 8:30.
You lie. It's 11:40. You were trying to make it like... Okay.
Well, East Coast.
Yeah.
Paul has had to be somewhere for an hour and a half.
Yeah, that's true. 2 hours and a half. But, so, yeah, there were often stops for beers. There were stops for not 1, but 2 meals, because it's a 3-hour movie. So 3 hours is on the movie.
We need a second meal.
The other 4.5 hours are on you guys.
Which, can I say, is a step down from Kaiser's original plan, which is to rent an Airbnb with a pool and a hot tub and record this entire show from there.
We watched the Apocalypse Now final cut, or as I like to call it, based on how today went, Apocalypse Eventually.
Let the filmmaker take his time.
And he certainly did.
I liked how he took his time. Moving on.
So these guys have had a lot of beers. That's the point. So you know how we
from
go.
the center. Yes.
Many.
In that amount of time,
Many's a lot.
we've consumed a few beers.
I don't drink, so I'll be steering this ship. So let's talk about the film.
Aren't you the model of how everybody should be? Oh, I don't drink. I'm the... Hey, guys. You want to be cool? You want to be healthy? Live like Paul Preston.
And yet, I'm excited to talk about Apocalypse Now, Paul.
Yeah, the greatest movie of all time.
Should we call it the Harrison, or should we call it the final cut or the Harrison Ford cut?
There is more Harrison Ford. That was one of the benefits of the final cut.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the greatest film of all time. Certainly the greatest war film of all time.
Now, are you pulling an Adam? Because sometimes he'll see a movie and say that's the greatest movie of all time. Or did you come in thinking that?
No, I did not come in feeling that, Paul.
Oh, really? So it is an Adam.
I absolutely, upon you know, what is it even like? It's like 5th viewing. I watched this thing again with the freshest eyes I've seen in a long time and was blown the fuck away. Mainly by Vittorio Storaro.
Wow.
We know that
There's 1 star in this movie.
Vittorio Storaro, the cinematographer, puts on an exhibition. And it is the greatest cinematography I've ever seen in a film. I rest my case. No further questions.
We want to talk for like another half hour, though.
I think you pick a good starting point, though, which is because for that first half hour of this movie, which we've decided is 8 movies, there are 8 different movies in
I
this
appreciate that comment, though. That's a good...
Right.
In a Netflix world, this would be 8 pieces.
It's 8 pieces.
In a Netflix world.
Within that, for the first half hour, for the first piece, basically, this entire living room just kept going, screw you. Come on, because he's too perfect.
Shot after shot is gorgeous.
After
and
shot.
Design.
After shot. After
Yeah.
shot.
Composition is
Have
amazing.
you ever watched a movie where every second counts? Like, if you turn away, if I just go over here to take a piss and I come back and like, wait a minute, it still looks like gold, which I did multiple times.
That's, again, why it's 7.5 hours.
It's always gold visually. That's
beautiful.
The Storario magic, but you got guys like John Milius and Mr. Coppola who laid out a landscape.
Okay.
But let's be real.
But you're right.
Storaro is the star of the show. Because it's all practical. There's no green screen, green screen, TikTok screen, no screens.
No, and that's the thing, too, because the legend of this movie is how big a pain in the ass it was to shoot it. And you look at it and you go, of course it was! They're like all the compositions are like 9 helicopters are like, hey, Coppola, would 5 do? No! 9! Right. And it's just these giant compositions and it's amazing. But it's all big. It's huge. It's 2, 3, 5 giant, the landscape of this to capture Vietnam.
This DVD especially was gold.
Right, like, I know. The latest
when
color.
When he stood up and he goes, you're so blown away because you're used to watching it like a VHS.
Well, that's
Remember
the
when
thing.
Whit walked up to the screen and he tried to block it off like, this is how you're used
This
to
is
seeing
what 4x3 would look like.
Yeah, that is how you're used to seeing it.
Because now that's the first time any of us saw it was 4x3 VHS, right? That is just not an accurate representation of this movie. And I will say that, Paul, you and I about 2 years ago saw this cut, the final cut, in an IMAX theater. And I walked out of that and said, Paul, I get it now. I actually get now why people love Apocalypse Now. And this movie is a masterpiece. And up until then, so that's 20 years of watching Apocalypse Now and going, it's not that great.
It's the Citizen Kane of the 70s.
What year was Easy Rider? 69?
I think. 8 or 9?
68, 69. So 10 years later, so this is the young filmmakers of Hollywood.
Mm-hmm.
So look at this. We're checking in 10 years into that movement. And so where we've come is just so fascinating. I thought of that mostly when
that movie's an opera.
When Dennis Hopper comes in, I just thought to myself, I'm like, this is almost exactly 10 years after Easy Rider, which ushered in a new movement in youth cinema.
Duvall pops on screen, and you look at me and you go, this is the Dr. Strangelove part of the movie.
It is.
I'm like, holy f***.
It is.
Yes, I've agreed with that same level of humor my whole life, but I never looked at it that way. You blew my f***ing mind. I'm like, oh my God, yes.
It's only a Vietnam satire while Duvall was on screen.
Bro, you blew my mind.
It's only a war satire.
Oh my God.
While Duvall's on screen.
So money.
Yeah, and it's absurd.
You hit the nail on the head.
It might as well be Hot Shots while Robert Duvall is on screen.
That's
Don't
a
you
stretch.
think?
That's a f***ing stretch.
Yeah.
That's a real f***ing
But
stretch.
it's...
Leslie Nielsen was not in this
but
movie.
it's...
But I'm saying when you
it's
hit,
nuts.
the way that has always been my favorite part of the movie.
Yeah.
The minute he's on stage and Charlie Don't Surf and the whole thing, and maybe I'm a Duvall nerd and I love everything Duvall does.
No problem with that.
I'll put it to you this way: I mic'd the man up.
Who doesn't love kicking and screaming?
One of my first jobs in Hollywood, miking up Robert Duvall. Like,
oh, did you?
I think you're the greatest human.
Tell a story.
I think you're the greatest human being on the planet. I'm just gonna put this microphone on you.
You're like, I loved your 30 seconds. And
he goes, you know who's winning this?
Vision Body Snatchers.
You know who's winning the football game out there? I go, I don't know because I don't have any money on it, so I really don't know what's going on out there. But
this is when you were miking up Robert Duvall?
I mic'd up Robert Duvall one time.
Did you guys talk about betting on college football?
I told him I was betting. He's like, what's going on in the football game out there? I go, no, yeah, I would know only if I was betting on it. So they're playing Canisius College, my old school where I played football at. Like, they're going to get their asses kicked. They suck. They sucked when I was there. They suck now. But, like, okay, great. He just wanted to know what was going on in the world. Like, dude, I'll tell you what. When I mic'd up, I also mic'd up Philip Seymour Hoffman. You want to know he wanted to know?
Only one of them was an Apocalypse Now.
You want to know he wanted to know? What's the score of the Bills game?
Yeah.
That's a Western New York kid. He's like, we're here at a movie, at a film festival, whatever. What is the first words out of Philip Seymour Hoffman's mouth? What's the score of the Bills game? I'm like, that's why I love you.
As I worked on a set with Michael Chiklis, notorious Boston sports fan. I sit down, I'm a California Angels fan. I said, how can I talk to Michael Chiklis sitting right next to me on the set of No Ordinary Family? I said, wait, we both hate the Yankees. So I bring that up. He's like, yeah, I the end. Then we had like 15 minutes of good conversation.
I got lucky because Hoffman brought up the Bills to me. I'm like, now we're simpatico.
I interviewed Bill Murray, and the first question he asked me, he goes, did the Cubs win today? And I said, Cubs didn't play today. And I go, nobody, and I thought in my head, I go, nobody knows more that the Cubs didn't play today than Bill Murray. Yeah. Because he looked at me and he's like, all right, you're cool. Like, he's like, you get it.
Testing you?
He was testing me.
So it makes sense that Hoffman was asking me. It was a Sunday at the George Eastman House in Rochester, New York. It makes sense that Hoffman's like, what score of the Bills game? I'm like, Mr. Hoffman, I don't know, but I will get that for you. And I got to him like, we're losing like we always do.
Well, let's put the audience in the... I'm sure you've all heard of Apocalypse Now, but let's put the audience in the realm of where this was. Of course, this is between Star Wars and Empire.
Yeah, for Harrison Ford. This is a Harrison Ford movie. This is the only reason we're talking about it.
And there's 4 in 1 year. You got Frisco Kid, More American Graffiti, and Hanover Street, and this. So we put out 4 movies. Still trying to figure out
1 year.
If he's going to be a leading man or not.
Frisco Kid, is that with Belushi?
No, that's with Gene Wilder.
Gene Wilder.
Belushi was with Jack Nicholson. That's going south.
Okay.
Yeah. So
I'm
this
getting
movie,
my Frisco Kids and my going south a little.
Easy misunderstanding.
But you talk about
Unless you've seen both.
You talk about 9. I need 9
That's why I don't
helicopters.
play this game, Whit. But go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
He's like, that's why you're a loser and I'm not. Next question.
I have no questions. We're just talking.
Next commentary.
The tagline for the movie is no surprise. The horror.
Oh.
The horror. The horror. The horror.
The budget, $31 million, plus over budget, plus marketing, $45 million.
Oh, wow.
But, like, of course, them's $1979. To see it, $5. Which was a new high in Los Angeles to go see that movie, because at first you talk about like 9 helicopters. There was such rigorous work to get exactly what Coppola wanted. It ended up being a Dolby Stereo 70mm print with stereo surround sound, so it could play in 3 theaters: the Ziegfeld, the University of Toronto, and the Cinerama Dome. And it was released for 147 minutes in that first cut, which is not the one we saw today, which was 183.
Oh, wow.
Did we watch? It felt like
40 extra minutes.
It was 7.5 hours.
It felt like 483 minutes. I really watched a 483-minute movie.
Yeah, okay. What I want to see now is Hearts of Darkness, because I have not seen that documentary.
Holy because that documentary is on point.
And I can't divorce myself from the making of Apocalypse Now, as you shouldn't, because as I said while we were watching this, I was saying it's a Werner Herzog thing, which is that in order to make a movie about a guy that hauls a ship over a mountain, in the course of shooting that movie, haul a ship over a mountain. You know, I mean, Coppola did that in this. It was just an impossible production, and
it's the only thing.
And I love that about this movie.
I knew someone when I was growing up who thought when Coppola appears in the film as a journalist filming the soldiers,
keep going.
He said that took me out of it. I didn't like the movie because
take it out. I'm like, then take it out.
Like, what do you? That's the scar that makes you not like the entire movie.
Right.
I agree. I'd be like,
take it easy.
Because that to me looked like if you know who.
Wait, you didn't like that?
It absolutely.
Wow, you're that guy from my childhood.
100% takes me out of it. Now, I'm not. That doesn't mean I'm scoring the movie low because of that. I'm saying don't be so fucking full of yourself. Cut yourself out.
Hold on. In that scene, it's in many times in the opening 4 movies of this movie, I think. But certainly at that movie, in this movie, as we said, this is 8 movies long. But in that scene, it's such a showcase.
This is 8 movies long.
It's such a showcase of
the accurate description of this film.
Right.
It's 8 movies long.
But it's such a showcase of the pastiche that he's creating in this widescreen thing, this 235 thing. It's always got to be 9 helicopters, 1 landing, 1 in the sky, 1 doing this.
A tank shooting fire, palm trees.
A tank shooting fire, 800 soldiers crossing here and here, and you're like, well, of course this drove you to madness, Francis Ford Coppola. I mean, you've just never seen such a lush, when you shoot 235, nothing makes me more mad than a movie that shoots 235, which is to say that extreme widescreen, like Lawrence of Arabia widescreen. When you don't fill that, but you shot in that, you are wrong. You are trying to be pretentious. How dare you? But Coppola fills that 235 every inch of it. And even if it's one thing in the screen, like Brando's head, and somehow that fills the screen. That
I've never
nobody's
seen
earned
a movie.
235 quite like Apocalypse Now.
See, you guys know my journey. I barely exposed to you my journey with this film was my dad was a Major League Baseball umpire. He was, on the exercise bike in the off season, wearing a trash bag, and we knew Bill Mirator. Bill Mirator was the guy who owned a video shop behind me, and I could walk in there and grab 8 movies, and because my dad would give him autographed baseballs, bats, whatever he needed, and that's so I could just make tapes.
So at Bill Mirator's video, you could rent whatever you wanted?
At Bill Mirator's video store, I could walk in with a U-Haul and be like, give me DC Cab, all the police academies.
Your dad had Mike Schmidt autograph a baseball for me.
Anything with Bubba Smith.
What would you rent?
And Chuck Norris,
Kaiser,
truck.
For a Dwight Evans baseball, you can get
Dwight Evans baseball. You're not that far off.
Kaiser, tell us what you would walk out. You got 8 movies that year. What were they?
Well, normally I'd walk out with...
You got Police Academy?
Police Academy for sure.
Which one?
All of them.
Yeah.
I was like the Bobcat Goldthwait phase. And then I'd get
I like Citizens on Patrol.
I remember being a huge Norris fan. So give me Invasion USA.
Right.
Give me
the Octagon.
Delta Force. No, the Octagon was 70s. That's old people.
Silent Rage.
Yeah,
Code of Silence.
Code of Silence. Ooh,
yeah.
That's actually a good one.
And then I get DC
Lone Wolf
Cab.
McQuaid was
Sidekicks.
No, I didn't remember
Lone Wolf McQuaid?
I don't know.
Oh, yeah, Lone Wolf.
Red Dawn.
I hate to take a side alley from Apocalypse Now, but...
Why end now?
What's your favorite Chuck Norris movie? Is it not Lone Wolf McQuaid? That is clearly the best one, right? Am I wrong?
No,
that is the best one.
The appropriate answer.
You like that better than Lone Wolf McQuaid?
Andrew Davis, the director of The Fugitive.
Yeah.
It's probably his most prestigious work.
Oh, that's true. The directing is not that great.
You know what? The appropriate
McQuaid,
answer is none of them because he sucks. So I'm going to go Delta Force because he gets Lee Marvin.
Lee Marvin originally considered for Colonel Kurtz.
Oh. Are you me?
Yeah, Lee Marvin, and there was another casting choice.
Paul, you have rails to get back onto?
And Orson Welles. Orson Welles also considered.
Oh, wow. And Bogdanovich worked with Orson Welles in his first movie. I remember seeing a documentary recently about Bogdanovich. It's interesting, all these young filmmakers who, of course, idolized Orson Welles.
Clint Eastwood turned down the main role to play Willard.
Okay,
Willard.
Good.
Oh, Clint Eastwood.
Yeah. Steve McQueen turned it down. They didn't want to pay him the $3 million.
Think of all who are the
Harvey Keitel. I guess I could imagine in this role.
Yeah.
Are you serious? That's a fact, right? That is a fact.
What I'm saying is what a fucking blessing it was to have this man Martin Sheen play. I don't think some people were born to play certain parts and you could never separate the two. This guy was that guy.
But he fades into the background enough that you could imagine other people
That's the most important part. But what you're saying is for the he's supposed to fade
back. You don't want like a Hugh Jackman out there.
Right, that's true.
But in that first original cut of that movie, he's supposed to fade back.
Yeah, he's kind of our eyes into the situation.
Right.
We're just sort of watching what unfolds.
Which is why you love that version more.
I do.
I think you'd rather see
Well, Keitel was cast. That you brought him up
originally. Yes,
Showed
that's
up
why
on
I say
set,
that.
Left a month into production. It only required about 4 days of reshoots.
Keitel was originally cast.
I'm glad he did.
They shot for a month.
I want to see the footage though. It's going to be like the Stoltz Back to the Future footage because he shot it. Well, Sheen was more soulful.
Make a new movie.
That's what
I don't give a.
And also, you have to think of the voice.
John, you have to give a because I want the audience to live vicariously.
No,
through
I love Harvey Keitel. Harvey Keitel in Reservoir Dogs, brilliant. I don't give a shit about watching lost footage.
How was Harvey Keitel when you mic'd him?
I didn't mic him.
What's the first time you saw this, Adam?
I saw this in sophomore year of college, in my living room on 4x3 TV, and I wasn't that overly enthused with it. I wanted to see all these classic movies, much like I do now. There's movies I haven't seen, that I need to see. So I watched it as like, I rented it at the local video store, and I was like, I gotta watch Apocalypse Now. I haven't seen this. I like The Godfather, but I hadn't loved The Godfather yet. But again, VHS, 4x3, not an epic presentation, not in a theater. And so when I saw Apocalypse Now, I was like, that's pretty good. I guess I see it. But I am watching it as a kid who saw Platoon, and that was a Vietnam movie that spoke to me like, wow, that really...
straightforward storytelling.
That really put me in the Vietnam experience.
Straightforward.
The thing I realize now that's different from the 1993 me is this isn't a Vietnam movie. This is an art movie with a satire of the war in the middle with the Kilgore sequence.
Yeah, I saw it before you, I think, I was younger. Because I was like you. I'm like, I love movies. I want to scoop them all up. What do we got? And so it fell into the category like Network and Chinatown.
Right.
And they all kind of went over my head, and I needed to revisit them again as an adult. So, I mean, I think that screening at the IMAX in 2019 was probably my favorite.
Thing.
That's the one where I went, got it.
That was the thing.
In.
Paul and I saw 2 years ago, I think.
Yeah.
The final cut in an IMAX. I was an advocate. I loved Hearts of Darkness, a filmmaker's Apocalypse, Coppola's wife's documentary on the making of Apocalypse Now. Because, of course, I love filmmakers more than I love films.
Nobody here tonight has seen Hearts of Darkness, the making of Apocalypse Now. You dare call yourself a cinema
That's me.
nerd.
I'm right here.
You're calling out Paul right now.
You're talking
Paul,
to me.
you suck.
Say that.
You suck. But you can get the
host of the show.
You have a chance to redeem yourself.
Okay, good.
But I used to say, as a bratty filmmaker,
Hearts,
well, now's a good time to see it.
Wife
close to a screening of Final Cut.
Right, and we should because I just got this $15 box set.
Ford's in it. I imagine, right? Is Harrison Ford in it?
I don't think he is.
Oh, they got to show at least an archival clip.
No, it's much more about the trials with the Air Force. We could squeeze it in as a
bonus Ford Fiesta episode.
Yeah, you're right. We could. We
to find out. I'll check the credits.
A bona fide Patreon episode, if I ever heard one.
So going back to how this was made, of course, it's adapted from Joseph Conrad's Heart of Darkness. Coppola changed from the Congo to Vietnam. Coppola references...
Which Wells tried to make.
You talk about art. There was all kind of art in the adaptation. Entering Kurtz's camp is like Dante's Inferno. That was the thing, like when the crazy people on the white boats spread apart and then envelop him into the camp.
What an amazing image!
I mean, yeah, I've read that book, so
and
I
that
get
whole
it.
shoreline with the
I've
red
read
smoke,
Dante's
the yellow
Inferno,
smoke.
sure.
Kurtz quoting T.S. Eliot, the spear and arrow attack was some sort of critique on the concepts of civilization and progress. That's apparently thought out. You know, it's a choice.
Did the T.S. Eliot quote make the cut?
He said Jellicoe cats.
No way.
Remember when he said Jellicoe
Kurtz. Jellicoe Kurtz.
Yeah.
Jellicoe Kurtz.
Talk about laser cats.
Kurtz may be slightly based on Tony Poe. This hasn't been confirmed by the filmmakers, but this is a guy, a real person, who would engage in secret wars in Laos, dropping severed heads into villages to send a message. And he worked for the government, and he would send ears back to his superiors to show them how well it's going.
And this idea of how the war is madness, how the war drives you mad.
Oh, yeah.
How you just can't keep your sanity.
How
in
about
the
when
world
he
of
couldn't
war.
live without coming back to it? That's like the beginning of the movie.
Well,
like,
that's interesting too.
I couldn't.
And I don't think that's hit over the head in the original cut.
Not at all.
Like he left the war and had to come back.
Come back. He could defuse bombs in Hurt Locker, but he didn't know what cereal to buy at the end of the movie.
Yeah.
That's the brilliance of that film.
But
you know
war
what I
was an
mean?
addiction. And that's
you know, I know what.
stated in
There's a
this one.
great book called "War is a Force That Gives Us Meaning," written by a guy named Chris Hedges, who is a writer for the New York Times, a war correspondent who covered war upon war upon war for 12 years, and he wrote a book called "War is a Force That Gives Us Meaning."
Someday this war's gonna end.
Well, here's some of the problems that happened over the 5-month shoot that stretched over a year.
5 months.
It stretched over a year.
Wow.
Extreme weather. Typhoon Olga wrecked 10 to 80% of the sets. Jeez. Cast and crew had to go home for a month.
Typhoon Olga.
Yeah.
Wow.
Brando showed up overweight and unprepared. He hadn't read Heart of Darkness.
He didn't.
Now, wait a minute. I want to talk about this because didn't he just put out Superman?
Bro, he was fat as f***ing Superman.
Not King Kong Bundy fat. Like
No, he was blowing up. So
That's fair.
yeah.
He might not have been that fat, but he was fat.
Now Superman was released. Superman was released in '78, but they were trying to shoot 2 movies at the same time. So that movie had been shooting for a few years, and they may have shot in Brando first. So Brando may have been shot in '76, and 2 years. We're looking at 2 years later. But he might have been He might have had 2 years to eat Twinkies.
You will find out what the cronut is on Earth.
My son. My son, you will dip the crust of
That's
that
the secret
pizza
to life,
in the
the
butter.
cronut.
My son. I pass on to you the garlic nuts.
Martin Sheen had a nervous breakdown, a near-fatal heart attack while on location.
That's real.
He claimed it was heat stroke so he wouldn't spook the investors in the film.
That's Coppola's stroke.
Yeah.
It's Coppola's stroke. It's Coppola's stroke.
You're not going for it enough. I want to see you bleed.
Well,
for real.
right. Punch the mirror.
Which happened. He broke the glass. That's all real blood.
Yeah.
I heard he was really drunk.
He was intoxicated.
And really, like,
opening scene.
and had a lot of depression issues. And, like, watch the documentary Hearts of Darkness.
Right.
And you will get some perspective on how twisted up Martin Sheen was in that moment of filming. He clearly wasn't a sound mind. And Coppola was pushing him.
By the way, with all of the helicopter composition stuff you see in the first... Helicopter porn is the first 30 minutes of this movie.
Right.
With all of that, can you believe of all the 70s...
This movie's in the helicopter porn section of the video store.
And can you believe all the 70s filmmaker who were like going for these big grandiose images to the point of like... all the helicopter stuff, I was like, holy crap.
Well, that helicopter
There's
comes
so
down
much
and lands
helicopter
right
stuff.
next to Martin Sheen and the other actors.
My God.
It's like, this could go wrong.
And so many shots of these long moving shots where helicopters have to land on time and actors have to land on time. It's one thing for an actor to make their mark to begin with in a lockdown shot. This one had to have 4 helicopters land and the camera moves.
Hanging off the helicopters trying to get to the playmates.
You got to remember
God.
one thing that is the
Impossible
the most
shots,
singular,
all of them.
This was the era, at least in American filmmaking, where the inmates strictly run the asylum.
Right.
They got the money.
Yeah.
They did what they want. They didn't give a shit. And like either there, someone, whoever's watching, like there's no internet, there's no emails to go back and forth. They did whatever the they want, for better or for worse. Practically because it was all on camera.
That's why
amazing.
That's why I notate when Dennis Hopper enters the picture that it is now 10 years or 11 years since the revolution began with Easy Rider. And each of those filmmakers took their own genre. There was the mob genre, sci-fi, disaster. They each took their own, and you're like, each one of them made these amazing masterpieces.
They all split off of Roger Corman and said, I'm going to make my own genre.
Here's war. Coppola does war.
To quote Coppola, we had access to too much money, too much equipment, and little by little we went insane.
That's a good thing, though.
Insane.
Samuel Bottoms, who played Lance the Surfer, got hookworm, which wrecked his liver.
Oh, God.
Wait, literally wrecked? When you say wrecked?
That was his phrase for it. He said it wrecked my liver. There was no medical, like, how bad it was. But
Yeah.
it might have been just for while he was there.
a real surfer, right?
Is that why he calms down halfway through the movie and appears to be in a trance? Because he got hookworm?
He dropped LSD.
He looks like an actor playing a surfer, but I'd be curious if he really...
One day, the entire payroll was stolen.
Backwater
Hey,
shade.
security guy from the Philippines government, can you keep an eye on this money?
Shady.
Coppola offered up his car, house, and winery and the Godfather profits as security to get the finishing funds for the film.
At that point, I'd be like, F it, let's go.
And
this is the greatest movie of all time.
And as we discussed in I think it was the American Graffiti episode, George Lucas' Star Wars hits huge, and then he's able to help Coppola out because Coppola produced American Graffiti. So these guys are helping each other.
And I would say the friendly rivalry between Coppola and Lucas. Coppola is making Apocalypse Now to be his Star Wars.
So Milius was encouraged by Lucas and Spielberg to make a war film.
Right.
Milius said he wanted to do it because he couldn't serve. Asthma.
Fact.
And then Milius' USC professor said, no screenwriter has ever perfected a film adaptation of Joseph Conrad's Heart of Darkness. So he set off to work, inspired by Dr. Strangelove. And Coppola then took over directing with an influence by Werner Herzog's Aguirre, The Wrath of God. So all the things we've mentioned...
Did I just call all that out while watching it? Oh, my God. Yeah. I'm the best film scholar.
Right. But they also are leading with all this stuff.
I called all that out, and I didn't look any of it up.
Yeah.
All my favorite scenes. You open my eyes, say, like, this like Dr. Strangelove.
Paul, it's nice that you brought your facts here, but let's talk about Robert Duvall.
I was like,
I got facts.
No, but that has always remained my favorite part of the film is anytime Duvall's on screen. And you looked over, you were like, it's like Dr. Strangelove. And I'm like, holy I never in my life made that correlation. Obviously it is.
There's an interview between Coppola and Milius, and they said all of them, him, Coppola, Lucas, loved Dr. Strangelove.
No
Yeah, that was in the interview. And you can so tell that when Kilgore comes in, it becomes a whole new movie.
Wow.
And I didn't find Kilgore like Hot Shots funny until I saw the final cut in IMAX. And I was like, Kilgore is the funniest character of all time. He is an absolute satire of war. This movie that's supposedly a satire of war is only a satire while Kilgore is on screen.
And Duvall gets nominated for 11 minutes of screen time.
Wow.
And John Milius thought, I love the smell of napalm in the morning was so over the top it'd be cut. And of course, now it's a classic, one of the classic lines of all time.
He wrote Quint's monologue.
This is just the beginning,
Kaiser, Quint's monologue from Jaws.
Oh, that's Milius?
That's mostly Milius.
Get the out of here. Of course it is.
Hey, let me talk about one Milius line that is famous because, I mean, we're talking about Apocalypse Now, but really this is a Harrison Ford movie that he's in for 5 minutes.
Let's talk about Harrison.
Let's talk about Harrison Ford.
Here we go.
We're talking about Francis Ford Coppola. We're talking about John Milius.
I forgot why we're
these guys. This is a Harrison Ford movie.
This is a Ford Fiesta. I forgot why I was here, for Christ's sakes.
Right. I was like, oh, which cut should we watch? And I'm like, well, whichever one has the most Harrison Ford in it. I didn't have time to research which one did have the most Harrison Ford in it. Clearly, we watched today the one with the most Harrison Ford in it. About, to my estimation, because I've seen the original cut, 10 times or so. So I still can recognize when we've entered a different cut. And I'm like, there is not that much Harrison Ford in the original cut. There's about 4 minutes of Harrison Ford, maybe, in the original cut. And there's about 8 or 9 minutes of it in this cut, which was awesome.
And he's part of the team that has to tell Willard to go kill Kurtz, to kill a fellow American soldier. And you can see the pain in his face when he has to deliver that news and he can't quite do it. And the other guys eventually chime in with kill with extreme prejudice.
It really sticks out the coughing fit that he has, where he can't bring himself because he's going.
The coughing.
He's clearing He's clearing his throat because he can't say, "You've got to go murder this man."
Oh, it was a little
because really that scene, the parody of that scene, the strange love of that scene is. By the way, we're here to tell you to go murder a man.
Right.
Go murder a person
who's a U.S. citizen like yourself.
We're here to tell you to.
And military man.
But all the analytic talk in that scene is like, we want you to, kind of go in and, kind of
murder.
And Harrison Ford's
commit murder.
Right. And Harrison Ford's the one that's trying to set that up, and he has the most literal parody of that, of the toughness of saying, what we're telling you to do is go kill a man by going, you can, you could go in and kind of bake him a cake, you know what I mean? Like kind of a welcome
murder.
To Baghdad, if you know what I mean?
Commit murder.
Yeah.
And he was cast after James Caan turned it down.
Oh,
because of the pay for such a small part. He did Journey to Shiloh by then.
He would have done Journey to Shiloh with Harrison Ford.
Hold on. Clarify this for me. Is James Caan in Rollerball?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And by the way, Kaiser.
Yeah, a little bit.
No. Whoa.
Here's the thing.
No, Kaiser.
Stop the clock.
Hold on. Stop the clock. When's the last time you saw Rollerball?
Never.
You and I are going to watch Rollerball, and let me tell you something about Rollerball. If I told you that Stanley Kubrick directed this movie, you would have very little argument.
Did Stanley Kubrick direct Rollerball?
No, but you will not believe it while you're watching it. It is a Stanley Kubrick movie.
Did Michael Mann direct it?
He did not.
Oh, who directed that?
Norman Jewison.
Norman Jewison, that's correct.
And if I said, "Oh, did you know Stanley? This is a Stanley Kubrick movie," without seeing the credits, you watch the whole movie and go, "I guess he did."
Wow.
That's how awesome Rollerball is.
Is that good?
Yeah.
I started watching this Michael Mann Thief movie. I fell asleep, not because it was boring, because I was tired.
No, it's boring, but it's Michael Mann boring.
This shit's intense. I'm like, this.
No, Michael Mann's a boring director. A lot of people don't admit that, but it's the boring I like.
You know what? You have a point.
Yeah.
You have a very good point.
He's boring, but he's like boring.
Like, here's a movie I
boring.
absolutely love.
I mean, if I was a woman, like he's the most boring filmmaker ever.
I like Drive with
right. Also for boys.
What's his name?
Ryan Gosling.
What's the phone name? Schwartz.
Yeah, fake Michael Mann.
Fake Michael Mann.
Yes.
Yeah.
What's his name?
Cuzzy, when I was
but that's okay.
Nicholas Winding Refn.
Nicholas Winding Refn. But the thing is, Michael Mann only makes a Michael Mann movie every 10 years. And he makes a movie every 5 years.
When I was watching Thief, I'm like, this seems like Nicholas Winding Refn's favorite filmmaker.
No, I love it.
I thought
it's not an insult when I say fake Michael Mann.
No,
it's like,
I
give
know,
me more
I
Michael
know.
Mann movies.
And
whoever wants to make a Michael Mann movie, bring it on.
That movie's like a Motley Crue concert. I want to rock.
All right, well, that's Apocalypse Now.
No!
No.
There's more.
No. So what else can we say? Coppola ended up being $18 million over budget, but because he was personally liable, he retained
over budget.
He retained the rights to the picture in perpetuity.
I wouldn't care.
Ooh,
so he said, go over budget, but however much it goes over budget, I'm okay with if there's a...
Here's the other thing about this.
I'm curious where the sentence is going.
No, I'm saying like... If it goes over budget, now I owe you money. Like I'm responsible for the fucking thing. Like, what does that mean in perpetuity? Like, if the
retained the rights to the movie.
If the movie tanks, I owe you money. Like,
he put his house, his winery, the Godfather profits all on the line.
For what?
To make
Apocalypse Now the movie we're talking about.
To make art, dude.
Talking about the other.
Here's the thing: you can watch this movie and go, "This is a masterpiece."
It is.
But then that sort of artsy guy inside yourself, you're like, when you realize that Coppola's like, "Yeah, I put up my entire life to make sure this movie came out."
You know what's amazing? Even watching Sterario's dailies, I was simply like, I have no idea if this is gonna work.
Oh, well, okay, wait.
Like the greatest...
Wait a minute. Super important point on that. In the Philippines, they couldn't watch dailies. There was no way to process the film.
Wow.
They filmed everything, sent it back to California, then Coppola watched it.
They had no idea if they'd shot.
Yep. Coppola had to borrow. You mentioned Coppola borrowing local military equipment from the Philippines when we were watching it.
Because 5 helicopters won't do. I need 9.
Well, also, kill Colonel Kurtz is the theme of the movie, so the U.S. military said, we can't get behind that. So,
Oh, no way.
But every once in a while, Ferdinand Marcos
He was no Michael Bay.
had to take back the equipment to fight the rebels in the Philippines.
I know.
And then give it back
amazing?
to them when they're done shooting.
Yeah, no, they had to call Coppola, like, we're going to need your choppers, dude.
Think of those complex shots we saw where the camera's moving, the helicopter lands, the other helicopter lands, and then Martin Sheen comes in and kneels down, and then 2 other helicopters lands. This like complex ballet of military might. And before you're about to shoot that, they go, "Hey, we got to take the helicopters. Sorry, guys.
We got rebels up our
Sorry, we have a real war.
Wow.
Not a Hollywood war. We got a real war.
You know what else came out that year? Like Reb Brown's Captain America and North Dallas 40. So I just want to say,
North Dallas 40.
I just want to say, Vittorio
Nick
Storaro
Nolte.
makes all the difference.
Wow.
Storaro gives the greatest human interpretation of film.
What about Emmanuel Lubezki?
If people want to say,
What about
Janusz Kaminski?
Yeah.
the
Amateurs.
The Orson Welles
Morons.
Citizen Kane?
Say that one.
What's Life of Princess?
That's the
Princess
greatest
Bride?
movie.
Morons. What about
No, it's great. It's
what about
great.
Janusz Kaminski? Morons.
Sorry, I couldn't
Lubezki?
remember.
Kaminski?
Morons.
Hall? Morons.
Morons.
That is
It's
what
a legit
we
point.
just watched today.
Who's the best?
It is a legit point. I think I've heard it 5 times.
Literally the greatest
And
thing
Harrison
anybody
Ford
ever
got us to this question.
captured on screen is Vittorio Storaro's Apocalypse Now.
We all turned to each other in the living room 50 times and we're like,
When you
what?
when you left,
What are we
dude?
looking at? What?
Well, so Storaro wins the Oscar. It won 2 Oscars total.
Okay.
The other one goes to Walter Murch and his team for the sound. Because
Murch.
as great as all that stuff was shot, I mean, the sound was all over the place because helicopters and all this stuff.
Absolutely.
They rebuilt a lot. They rebuilt entirely the sounds of the jungle. And they had to ADR a ton of the
THX
dialogue.
1138's Walter
Yeah.
Murch.
Yep. And he edited the film, too, so he's in the sound
many
and he's
awards
in the
did Tootsie
film
get?
editing.
Amazing.
Both
Amazing.
that. Yeah, and he's
What a
nominated.
maestro.
Nominated for editing, too. It didn't win. And I was like pointing out fun names deep in the credits. The supervising editor was Richard Marx. If you know Richard Marx, he worked with James L. Brooks on all those films.
Oh, Richard Marx was a guitar player.
Not the singer.
Yeah, I know the singer.
He edited like
Don't Mean Nothing?
Broadcast News and which is one of my favorite movies of all time. So
That's a great film.
Another cool credit in there, executive assistant Melissa Matheson, who
Oh my gosh.
ties in directly to the show because went on to
Yeah.
marry Harrison Ford.
Went on to marry Harrison Ford. And wrote
E.T.
E.T.
Yeah.
Melissa Matheson.
I would never know that.
That's cool. It's all in the family.
And
Coppola,
There you go.
Lucas.
If you're wondering,
Harrison
hey, can I
Ford.
turn this executive assistant job into something? You can. You can marry Harrison Ford.
You might go
and
through-
write one of the biggest movies of all time.
All you have to do is go through the hardest shoot in cinema history, and you might meet Harrison Ford, the guy from The Conversation.
He's a good one.
Some other fun facts. Lawrence Fishburne lied to get cast, saying he
Yep.
was 18. He was 14. By the time the movie was released, he was 18.
Why don't I have guts to say, like, I mean, when I was 14, I would not do anything that required an 18-year-old. If I said I was 18 and someone's like, no, you're 14, I'm like, oh, I'm such a terrible person.
Suburban bullshit.
But
dude.
Lawrence
I was with
Fishburne
that
has the
shit,
courage.
Yeah. Tiny
Rose up.
performances, perhaps uncredited. Scott Glenn, another appearance along Harrison Ford. He'll appear in, he appeared in More American Graffiti as well. Arlie Ermey
You've
is
seen him
uncredited
in
as a helicopter
The
pilot.
Right Stuff.
Now, hold on.
Which is Philip Kaufman.
That's Philip Kaufman. But that's a George
We got the
Lucas.
credits with
but
the
that's a
Schmoedowns.
friend of
Your
George
manager.
Lucas, Arlie Ermey. As soon as he came on screen, I was like, that looks and sounds just like Arlie Ermey.
He's got one line, but
He's got one line.
Did call out the Arlie Ermey, you sneaky
There's no mistaking Arlie Ermey when he comes on screen.
one more Brando story. A taller actor doubled him to make him more mythic because I guess he showed up so fat. They wanted him to be larger than life. He ended up being like larger in width. And he improvised a lot. And one time he yelled at Dennis Hopper over a simple misunderstanding. So Hopper antagonized him in the rest of the film. And Brando didn't want to share the set with him. So even the scenes where like they're yelling at each other, they're not shot at the same time. They're intercut, but not shot at the same time because Brando didn't want him
If
around.
you look at the shots, they look completely profile and fake. So that looks like a bunch of bullshit. Now that tracks.
And we talk about everything Coppola had to have. So it premieres at the Cannes Film Festival unfinished wins the Palme d'Or.
Oh, wow.
Played in May at Cannes, then opened in August, so I had time to finish it.
Yeah.
But when it played...
could possibly be better than this?
But when it played at Cannes, technicians had to work last minute to add speakers to the theater to achieve Murch's 5.1 soundtrack. Wow. The first ever work in progress shown at Cannes, and it won.
And the first ever 5.1 print, I believe.
Well, yeah, if they had to change the theater around, it's not surprising.
This invented 5.1. I swear, so much of this movie is competition with George Lucas because George Lucas and Coppola have a strong partnership throughout time. And when Lucas left Coppola to go make Star Wars, and that became the biggest thing ever, Coppola's like, well, I'm going to make a Star Wars.
My dad was literally like, go put down your G.I. Joes and watch this movie. Like,
how old were you? He's making you watch
9 years old.
Wow, that's heavy.
So my dad was
watch this movie about.
My dad was a major league umpire in the off season. He's like, sit down and watch this. Put down your GI Joes, and I started watching this movie. It's like you said with the helicopters. Like I'm like, this is like real, dude. Like, and again, I could only get through enough of it that a kid could like. I gotta leave after you're going into like slaughtering boars and doing all the weird. Like I'm gonna ride bikes with my kids.
It's such a dad movie.
Yeah. Yeah,
you were talking about movies your dad would watch.
He would only.
There's Apocalypse Now, Hamburger Hill,
Over the Top,
Uncommon Valor,
Walter Hill, like Escape. What is it? USA something USA.
Invasion USA. Yeah. Red Dawn you mentioned. Yeah.
Red Dawn.
Silent Rage.
What was the one? The Delta
Force. Loved dipping
Force.
back in the 70s.
Delta
A Force of One.
A Force of One.
Delta Force. I'd be like, I want to watch DC Cab, the funny, goofy shit. I want to watch, Police
Save
Academy,
that for the Schumacher Siesta.
Goofy shit.
All right, we got to wrap this up because it's been an hour. But to wrap it up, I will say in 2000 it's selected for preservation in the U.S. National Film Registry by the Library of Congress. It's re-released again in 1987 on the heels of Platoon and Full Metal Jacket. It's 98% of Rotten Tomatoes.
It's
so probably
the greatest
Rex
film
Reed.
in the history of film.
Is Rona Barrett still alive? She called it a disappointing failure.
Barrett.
And then, of course, you talk about the competition with Lucas. I don't know what Star Wars made. I can't remember its initial release, 300-400 million, something like that. This made 40. But over time, it's made 100.
Okay.
So in the re-releases,
it's not about money; it's about impact.
No, Coppola, unfortunately, is trailed behind Lucas in some weird way.
He's wanted to get his. I'm sure he wanted to get his winery and his car and everything back. So it was a little bit about money. And then, of course, it did lead to one of my favorite moments in Hot Shots. I think it was Part 2, where Charlie Sheen's character is going down a boat in the river, passes Martin Sheen on another boat. They look at each other and in sync say, "Loved you in Wall Street," which is both true. They're both great in that movie, but just hilarious.
Because they both have monologues. There's a monologue in Platoon and there's a monologue in Apocalypse Now. And they did a parody of both those voices.
That's funny. And is this the first Vietnam movie? Well, the Green Berets did it first. I think it came out during the war. One. But then the Boys and Company C and the Deer Hunter. That's all that came before it. So none of these are showing it as to be a good war, and nor should they. So the Hollywood had the balls to be accurate about what a crap war Vietnam was. And the Harrison Ford list of essentials we don't even have to go through because all the stuff we love with the pointing and the yelling and the punching a guy, just none of it happened.
No,
hookers.
Whores and hookers.
So, Kaiser, we talk about the Ford essentials, the things you love about Harrison Ford each week. There's the Harrison Ford point. You find this man.
Oh, you always do it.
There's a punch. But he does none of that in this movie.
Righteous anger.
Righteous
anger.
Smile
and charm. He's all business. This could be a part Scott Glenn could play because it reminds me of something like he played in Silence of the Lambs or something.
Scott Glenn from More American Graffiti?
Yeah, that's Scott Glenn. Yeah, right. More American Graffiti's Scott Glenn. So then we ask, and you can chime in on this, Kaiser, how Harrison Ford is he
in this movie?
Percentage-wise.
Kaiser, when you think about the ultimate Harrison Ford, like the 100% Harrison Ford, we're talking about what percentage is he in this movie, Harrison Ford? I think he's like 30% Harrison Ford.
Yeah, I think so too.
Is he more Harrison Ford than the bellhop in Dead Heat on a Merry-Go-Round?
Paging Mr. Ellis.
Well, yeah, he's tasked with more,
so
and we can get a little more presence out of it.
Okay, so I'd say that's 30%. Yeah. This might be 45.
Oh, that's 30%? The bellhop's 30%?
What do you think?
I don't know. I can't remember what we graded it, but looking back on it, I'd probably give it like
we could say right
10.
now.
But this is more than that.
This is more than that.
No, he's very good. He's very good in the part.
I feel like I'm watching Friends when I see him in this movie. Like, I'm like, what's going on here?
How do you get that?
Weirdly awkward. Like, I don't.
That's a weird take. That's your first weird take.
Yeah.
I don't like him.
I'm really shocked that's your first weird take.
I'm like, I'm not with it. Like, you
here's the
could have
thing.
got anybody
Here's
to
the
do
thing.
this. You could have.
I can speak as a Harrison Ford expert.
You can go on the Brando Bonanza and talk all about how great he is.
I like Harrison Ford with a hot rod. Harrison Ford with a hot rod.
We've had 2 of those so far.
Okay.
Paul, did you set up the show by saying we'd had a few to drink?
And with that,
I
ladies and gentlemen,
was not impressed by.
Hold on. We've got to decide what percentage Harrison Ford he is. All right. So, for
I'll
example,
give him 20.
For example,
20%.
All right. We got 20%.
That's pretty good considering you thought you were watching, Matthew Perry.
I will give
Powers of Matthew Starr.
him a
Powers of Matthew Perry.
20% in this movie.
Okay.
I say 30.
Yeah, okay. So, what do we think he was?
Did not blow me away.
I'd say in
And by the way, if you were not in this movie, nobody
He's not
cares.
supposed to blow you away. He's all facts.
Good. And here's the news.
Kaiser.
Go away.
Let me
Go away?
Put Scott Glenn in.
No.
Let me throw out a few percentages here. First of all, Kaiser, do you know the very first person that Harrison Ford punched on screen? Kaiser, you're going to love this. The very first person that Harrison Ford punched on screen.
Punch? He's got more than one punches?
Well, I said
he's got thousands, probably.
Thousands of punches
What a
in his
dick.
career.
Who punches people on
But think about this. Harrison, hey.
You are on the wrong show, my friend.
Indiana Jones punches plenty of people, right?
Not on camera, really.
I think we're done. Ladies and gentlemen, that's the Ford Fiesta. Next
Jack
week,
Lemmon.
we're finally done with this and getting on Empire Strikes Back.
I used to like you, Harrison Ford. I used to like you.
We apologize for the previous episode.
Now you're f***ing me over.
We swear we took Apocalypse Now very seriously for about the first 2 hours
It's
of
the
this
greatest
day,
film in the history
starting
of
at
life.
about 1:30.
2 hours of this podcast. Goodbye, everybody. Oh, and follow us at the Movie Guys LL on the social media.
Yeah, right. Kaiser, where should
Movie guys are the best.
All right, there
Movie
you go.
He likes us. He hates Harrison Ford, but he likes
Movie
us.
guys are the
And
best.
if you hate Harrison Ford, come on the show.
Hey, last thing.
Okay.
Hold on.
Movie guys.
Hold on.
Sure.
We can't end the show
Second last thing.
until I get to this note. This
Okay.
note is very important.
Go ahead.
There's a couple famous lines in this movie, right?
What
Name a famous line for this movie. Kaiser, go.
We used to
Don't
kill
involve
these
him.
sharks.
Incorrect. A famous line for this movie is terminate with extreme prejudice. And I love...
What movie?
Apocalypse Now.
Jesus Christ.
Jesus.
I didn't know that it had to do with apocalypse. I mean, we were talking about different things since then.
Here's the
I'd
thing.
be like this.
Here's the thing. Terminate with extreme prejudice is a famous line from this movie, right?
is.
It's a very John Milius line. You like John Milius.
I like Harrison Ford right there.
Well, we
Okay,
all
we've
love
turned you
Harrison
around.
Ford.
Thank
Turned
you.
you around. I love that Harrison Ford is in this movie for 3 minutes, and he sets up the most famous line of the movie.
Very nice.
How cool is that? Kilgore is my favorite character in cinema history, I believe, as of today.
All right, well, let's get you outside so you can smoke. Thanks for listening to the Ford Fiesta. Bye-bye.
And
I love
that's the
it.
Ford Fiesta.
Movie
Train
guys.
recognition.
There's mine's over there too. And watch out, those goddamn monkeys bite you, I'll tell you. Ah, that's a pretty one. Move it right in toward me. I'm an American.